Yeah, you probably gonna exit back
All right.
there.
What's up, Blueprint family? Thank you all for joining us tonight, this Labor Day night. Happy Labor Day to all the hardworking people out there. Hope you all having or had a wonderful weekend. Hopefully, you were off today,
Yeah.
as I was. So, welcome. Thank you all for joining us.
Yeah.
So, tonight's topic is attraction to someone else while in a relationship.
Oh, this was inspired by a great question, a question that we haven't had before. So it's always nice to get these new questions in that cause us to talk about some juicy topics. I think this is a juicy one.
Yeah. And before we start, our Instagram followers are coming in. Thank you all for viewing us,
Yep, and
subscribing,
YouTube
and
and
YouTube
Facebook.
and Facebook viewers. Thank you all. And as always, we have live, not live, but our text and letters and some read-alongs to go on YouTube. We're not able to share those on Instagram, but if you all Instagram viewers would like to review the letter while we're reading it, by all means, please join in on YouTube. Also, subscribe there. We're finally over 360 viewers. So that's the last time I looked, which is great. We really appreciate you all. And we're like way over like 6,800 viewers on Instagram. Thank
Mhm.
you all.
Subscribers, followers,
Yeah.
yeah.
Subscribers, followers, all of that. Thank you all for joining us.
Yeah,
And if you
support.
all can, go ahead and like, share, subscribe our videos, we really appreciate it. So we're gonna go ahead and jump on in.
Yes, let's get on in. So this is a quick question, which is great. I hope it like comes up. Why is this acting? Our thing always wants to do this. Hold on. Let me pull it off one more time.
Yeah, showed up.
Trying to act a little funny. There we go. I wanted to minimize it so I can read it on the screen. All right, let's dig into the question. Subject: attraction to other people when in a relationship. Is this normal? Even if I want to be completely monogamous with my spouse, is it unrealistic because he or maybe I will have an attraction to someone else? Can you all be honest with me? What do you do when you find yourself attracted to other people even though you're in a relationship? Is it normal to wonder what it would be like with them or find yourself constantly thinking about them? That's it. Plain and simple. You start because this kind of leads right on into the topic. But before we even just break the topic down, is there anything in specific you wanted to say to this, the person writing in, just specific wise? But
Yeah, the first question is this normal? Yeah, I think that's normal, but what separates you from animals is your ability to have self-control of over your emotions and your feelings.
higher consciousness, thought, and reasoning.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So maturity level. So your maturity level is what prevents you from stepping out of the relationship, is what prevents you from not miscommunicating, having issues with your relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and prevents you from trying to fantasize about being with someone else.
Right.
And that's pretty much it to me. You control all of that. If you're having problems trying to control your urges, your feelings, and lust, and all of these things, then you need to find ways in order to get some help with that. Verbally
Mm-hmm.
speak about that through counseling, because it sounds like you have problems being loyal. Loyalty is an issue, and that goes with your thoughts, and your actions as well. Go ahead. Can you go to the next side? Being with someone, can you be honest with me? What do you do when you find yourself attracted to other people, even though you're in a relationship? And maturity, like I said, maturity is what keeps you loyal to the person that you're with, and attraction is a normal thing. I think attraction is a normal thing. Everybody goes through it, and
Yeah, even if you're in a happy relationship in particular, like even if it's just humans are hardwired to naturally be attracted to the novelty, right? So when you're going through your day-to-day life, you're going to see something that is new and maybe attractive to you, and your brain will naturally create dopamine in response to seeing something you like. It's just that natural neurotransmitter of pleasure and reward, that will be sent just from seeing something pleasing. So that's what makes it in particular natural and normal. And we're all going to feel this regardless to whether or not you're already in a, relationship.
Right. And of course, you're bombarded with bodies and faces and attractiveness and things like that through media, television.
Yeah.
So you're always surrounded by things like that, which piques your interest.
Right. Yeah. But like you were saying, the most important thing is to be mindful of these feelings and to act in a way that's respectful to your spouse. And we'll certainly dig into this, specifically how you can do this, later. But there are some clear, I think, distinctions between healthy attraction and unhealthy attraction that actually could be signaling something being wrong in your relationship. And that's probably where this woman in particular needs to find clear distinction, because that's what's most important, knowing the difference between what's something natural and what's something that's probably going to lead to something else.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to just dig on into that? Do you want to keep the question up? This is nice just to see reference point for anybody who happens to join in.
All right. Yeah. So your attraction to someone else is usually harmless when you enjoy spending time with the person, but you don't have a strong feeling for them.
Mm-hmm.
So this means you can find other people pleasant and enjoyable to be around, but you don't feel a deep emotional connection to them.
Yeah.
You may be attracted to their physical appearance or their personality, but you don't have any desire to be in a romantic relationship with them.
Right. Clear distinction of what that really is. And then, of course, you can easily control your thoughts and your feelings towards that other person if it's a healthy, harmless, I just think they're a good looking person, or I think they're nice, or if it's harmless around that, this means that you should really be able to still focus on your own relationship with your spouse and not let your attraction to this other person get into the way of what you already got on. So that means in particular, what this woman says, is it normal to wonder what it would be like with them or find yourself constantly thinking about them? That's certainly going to lead into what we mean by it leading into these unhealthy feelings and thoughts and behaviors, because that's the part you want to be able to get that person out of your mind and not dwell on them or have feelings for them that are going to turn into something else.
Yeah, like depression.
Yeah, certainly.
Because, being the fact that you can't be with this person, you're already in a relationship. What's wrong with the person that you're already with? So you need to be fantasizing and daydreaming about the person that you're with instead of someone else.
Yeah.
I think that's ridiculous. But I mean, then again, that's her boyfriend, right?
So I'm assuming. Well, hold on. The question was just, even if I want to be completely monogamous with my spouse, is it unrealistic? Okay. So she may not even be in a relationship yet. This could just be a general question. Yeah, hypothetical question. But that's where the clear distinction and understanding on your part needs to be had. Right. So then you know what to do.
You have a level of accountability.
Yeah.
You have to be accountable for yourself, not trying to harbor these type of feelings and just let these things go, especially if you're in a committed relationship.
Right.
So you don't feel the need to act on your feelings. I talked about that earlier. This means that you are not tempted to cheat on your spouse or to pursue a romantic relationship with the other person.
Yeah.
You're content with your relationship and you don't feel like you need to explore your attention to be with other people. So that's maturity. That's loyalty. That's accountability. That's what's being responsible. That's being respectful. All of those things. Hold yourself to a higher value than trying to cheat out on your relationship.
Yeah.
Be someone that's dependable, not a liability.
Yeah, so. True. Because there are some clear signs that your attraction to someone else could more so be, hey, there's a relationship problem, underlying that you need to get to. And one in particular is if you find yourself thinking more and more about the other person when they're not around. that's a clear sign that, this is turning into something more or less harmless and more so harmful, because that's going to definitely impact how you operate around your spouse, who occupies your mind, and that, that's certainly going to lead to more and more feelings if you don't control that.
Right. And then you start to compare your spouse to the other person and find
Yeah.
yourself finding your spouse lacking.
Mm-hmm. Pointing out things that they don't do, or they are, or just even in general. That's why we always say you got to be mindful of how you hold your spouse in your head, and probably other people in comparison in your head, because in particular you may just start to point out like negative things about your spouse, or overly be critical on them just because you're trying to compare them with someone else, or you're starting to have an infatuation with someone else. You really have to be careful about how you hold your spouse in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, you feel like you have more in common with the other person than you do with your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things seems to be an issue with the actual person. So
Mm-hmm.
you really need to go and get yourself some help as far as communicating this stuff outwardly. Communicate it to your spouse first
Right.
before things get worse. So
Right. And that's certainly probably we're gonna probably dig into that a
Okay.
little bit later, I think, because in particular, that's something that, yeah, you gotta have those conversations. They're gonna be hard, but you gotta address it, especially if you're in a committed relationship and you want to be with this person. Now, of course, if you find yourself having these, common thoughts about, hey, I like being with this other person more, then you're more so likely gonna start fantasizing, and could also lead to the next point, which is avoiding spending time with your actual spouse, and, making plans with the other person. So that's when you head on into actively acting on those thoughts.
And then you feel guilty or ashamed about your attraction to the other person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's more so if you find yourself, I think, constantly thinking about that person, then guilt may come along with it, especially if maybe you are attracted to your spouse and you don't want that to happen. What
Right.
you can say?
I mean, that's natural. When you're
Yeah.
doing something you're not supposed to be doing, you feel guilty about it.
Right. Even if it is just in your mind. Yeah. Yeah. Your feelings will start, especially if you got a conscience. Hopefully, you're starting to feel like, dang, like I shouldn't be thinking like this.
And no, there's something I've just thought about. What if it's a guy who's dating? That's different. I think that's different.
Well,
Or
I
a
think it's
woman
the
who's
same. Yeah.
dating,
It
because
can apply for both.
that's not a committed relationship. So then
Right.
it's different. So
Right.
if you're not in a committed relationship, then you're fine. As far as having these feelings and ways of thinking. But she's talking about a committed relationship where
Mm-hmm.
there's
Where
her
you're
spouse.
monogamous. Yeah, you have declared that. Mm-hmm.
Right. So evidently this is a marriage. If you want to take it that far, then you're in a marriage situation. Why would you do all this stuff and act this way in a marriage? There's something wrong there.
Yep.
Either with the woman or either with the relationship.
Yeah. Or the man. Yeah. The man or the woman or the relationship, the person within themselves. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And especially it's unhealthy if you start to fantasize about the other person. That is no good, because it will only lead you to the next thing, which hopefully isn't, what you act on. But if you actually start to act on your attraction, then, either emotionally or physically, that crush or whatever could turn into an emotional affair. And that's, just as real, I think, is right along with, especially maybe even more so with women, when you really connect with another man emotionally or whatever, then that, that could be just as deep as if you had actually had sex with the person, even if you didn't. So it's very important to be mindful of that.
If you are experiencing any of these signs, it is important to take steps back and evaluate your relationship.
Right.
So it is important to be honest with your spouse about your feelings. It can be a difficult conversation, but it's important to be open, communicative, and honest with your spouse about what you are going through. Mm-hmm. This is necessary if you want to repair any damage that has been done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for this lady in particular, what did she say? what what can we be honest, to if we want to be completely honest, if you are having these attractions and they, reach out to the extreme to where you're fantasizing and all that good stuff, then you really have to have those conversations to figure out what is going on in your relationship, because chances are it's your relationship that's the issue, not even that pretty person that walked by. It's a under. Oh, sound better? We should have checked the sound before we did it.
Yeah, it's just my mic.
Oh, okay, good. But yeah, it even still, like, within your whole relationship, if this is going on, that means that the root cause is actually within the relationship. So just to address some of these things to be mindful of, to make sure that you don't allow these things to happen when you're in a relationship, because it kind of sets you up for you're more susceptible, we could say, susceptible to be more attracted to someone than you should be, and more likely, I guess, to act on those attracting feelings. So one in particular would be like your unmet needs in your current relationship. So that's a given, right? Because with the ups and downs of any relationship that you go through, you're not always going to be, 100%. But especially in those moments where you may feel you're not getting what you need from your spouse, you're a little more, vulnerable to meet someone and then be more likely to entertain them if they start to fulfill your either emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, or, shared interest, or whatever it is that causes you to be more attracted to that person. And chances are you're more likely to act on that or be more inclined to even entertain it a little more than you should, just because there's actually some really unmet needs that's actually going on in your current relationship.
Yep. And then feeling bored or stagnant in your relationship. So if your relationship has been routine and predictable, you may start to feel bored or stagnant. This can lead to a lack of excitement and passion, which can make you more susceptible to attraction to someone else. Especially those new relationships in which you were single and then you're getting into a relationship and then it turns stagnant, which is called normal.
Right.
Your relationship starts to be very normal, and you miss the thrill of the chase or whatever the case may be,
right,
or wanting to be out there in the streets. You have to understand that at the end of the day, you're in a safe place. The streets is not safe. There's a lot of risks involved with the streets, and that's something that we practice here is risk management. In our older videos, we talked about risk management and reducing risk.
Yeah.
And it's in particularly in relationships. So feeling bored and stagnant means safe in your relationship.
Yeah. Just be mindful of that. So if you're starting to feel this way, a lot of the times what you're missing is those honeymoon feelings. So if you do happen to come across, someone who is attractive, whatever, then you're more likely to get excited. So, those exciting feelings, like when you first have your first crush, or even in your own relationship, when you first start dating, that excitement that you feel of like, oh, this is new, oh, this is nice. Like that is actually kind of going to be a mask or like blinding to the reality of it, to where, in truth be told, it wouldn't matter if you jump to that next relationship or not. Eventually you're going to end up back into those relaxed, normal, boring feelings, because that's kind of how a relationship is. Once you become comfortable with someone, that the highs of the honeymoon goes away eventually. So got to find peace with that and really see, like, is this worth me actually acting on this, or is this, some fleeting feeling that I'm just chasing? Yeah.
Feeling insecure or unloved in your relationship. Yeah. So if you're feeling insecure or unloved in the relationship, you may be more likely to seek attention and validation from someone else. This can lead to attraction to someone else who makes you feel more desired and appreciated.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yep.
Yeah. And even it makes me think of, like, when you mentioned earlier about like the media and being bombarded with images of like people's bodies and faces and stuff, and may make you even just naturally insecure within yourself if you're not ideally where you would like to be, and maybe your self-esteem is low. This may be something you need to pay attention to whether or not am I trying to seek validation from something else, because it's actually within myself. I may be a little insecure, or have some underlying traumas maybe that you need to like work through. So it's just really important to pay attention to if whether or not your feelings are actually valid, or if they are just rooted in some unconscious behavior that you can actually work and change and start to feel that confidence within yourself. So then likely you're more receptive to the love that your spouse would be giving to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then having a history of infidelity. So if you or your spouse have a history of infidelity, it can make it more likely that you will be attracted to someone else. So this is because infidelity can damage trust and intimacy in any relationship, making it difficult to feel secure, feel secure and fulfilled as well. So
yeah, that's important to I guess really pay attention to if you're in that constant relationship where you have cheated, or maybe your spouse has cheated, and you're just always more hyper vigilant of trying to make sure like, hey, don't want this to happen again, whatever the case may be. Your spouse may need to implement some boundaries within themselves if they're the one that has that history of infidelity, just to make sure that they don't put themselves in any situation that may be a little harder to come back from. If like, I'm probably not the best in this type of situation, that's okay. You got to recognize when, I think that whole myth of once a cheater, always a cheater, there's only truth to it if you allow yourself to continuously do the same things and expect the same results, just simply by, you just trying to trust on your own ability to handle situations. If you're not up for that, then you're setting yourself up. So just really got to be careful of, your history, and if this is something you are actually good at doing, or if you may need to help yourself be loyal, help yourself not get into those situations.
I mean, we'll get counseling.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're just that weak. You're just that weak that you just cannot stop cheating. So first of all, you don't need to be in a relationship. You need to fix yourself first before you actually get into another one.
Yeah.
You need to gain trust into yourself, because that's you don't trust yourself not to cheat.
Right.
That's what's going on. So you need to build yourself back up, let go of your traumas or whatever your neglect issues that you may have, and like I said, build trust within yourself, so to instill the fact that you know yourself enough not to cheat.
Those morals, those values,
maturity, all of that.
Yeah, because these are just some of the factors that actually contribute to whether or not your attraction is going to signal a more serious problem within your relationship. I mean, there's other factors like your personality, your personal values, your life experiences. All of those things are definitely going to contribute to whether or not you're more capable of, handling yourself in a healthy way when attracted to someone else. So that's just, I think, an important role that you have to first figure out before, like you said, you get into a relationship. Am I even up for this task? Don't get yourself in a relationship or, say you're going to be monogamous if that's not something you're actually capable of doing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
If you are not the best at being monogamous, then practice on just being alone, and practice on, like I said, making yourself better and for a relationship, so that you cannot hurt other people.
Yeah, because there's a thing called karma.
Exactly.
I think it's relationship karma, I like to say, in particular, because not only how you get them is possibly how you lose them. So if you start off cheating and you get somebody through cheating, it could happen to you too. But also, if you get into a relationship and your intentions ain't there and you just playing with he or she's heart, then hey, you're more likely to experience some karma down the road where you could think, hey, I really like this person, I really love this person, and then they end up doing the same thing to you. So love is a very, very peculiar thing. You got to be careful with that, and it's really important if you're able to uphold some good values, some morals, some ethics for yourself and for your relationship, because that helps prevent all the extra drama that's not helpful.
Yeah. So also to take time to reflect on your own feelings and motivations. What is it about this person that you find attractive? What is missing in your current relationship? Once you understand the root cause of your attraction, you can start to address it.
Yeah, that's really important for yourself to go through. If you constantly are finding yourself just seeming to be attracted to all types of people, women all the time or men all the time when you go out, figure out if this is actually a relationship where you're getting your needs met. What's actually going on here? Are you seeking something else? What's missing in your current relationship? I think that's more so the question that this woman has to ask herself, or, in a man in this case, any men watching, of course, too. If you find yourself, attracted to this other person, what are your motivations behind it? Is it just because, you're looking to be validated, or, you know, whatever motivations that you can come up with to actually why you're trying to do this? Is it just because you're maybe in a long distance relationship and you're missing that intimacy? Whatever it is, once you can figure that out, then you're more likely to actually address the real issue. So if you notice you're not getting the physical intimacy or the emotional intimacy or the close proximity that you need to be with your spouse, if you're missing any of these things, address it. Don't try to go to the next relationship thinking that, oh, it's going to be, different. Or even so, if you have like traumas, like commitment issues, or like fear of monogamy, stuff like that. If you have any type of issue like that, that's certainly gonna carry along to your next relationship. So it's got to be mindful of those root causes of things.
Right. And it is possible that your attraction to other people is simply a sign of a temporary lull in your relationship, and things can be repaired with some effort.
Yeah.
However, if you find that your attraction to the other person is persistent and it causes you to distance yourself from your spouse, it may be a sign that your relationship is in serious trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are both willing to work on this relationship, it is possible to overcome this challenge and come out stronger on the other side.
Yeah, big key word. You got to work through it. So that means you got to be honest. You got to have that conversation. Got to talk about it and figure out what's going on, figure out some things that you could possibly do together. I think just being open and honest is super big. You mentioned that earlier, but being open and honest is super big. You should be comfortable enough to say, oh, she's a nice looking girl, he's a nice looking guy, whatever, like without feeling
like you need to be with them,
yeah,
or sleep with them, or
yeah. If that is what's going on, that you got to have a serious, deep conversation with your spouse. Like, hey, I've seen this girl earlier today at the grocery store and I thought she was really, really nice. And, it had me thinking about our relationship. I would like you to do such and such and such more so I can feel that same attraction to you. Whatever. I don't know. However it plays out, it's really got to get into first the root cause and then actively together working on some solutions that you can bring that attraction back into the relationship versus letting somebody else, come in the middle.
Yeah. So it's important to be mindful of the potential consequences of acting on your attraction to someone else. Infidelity can damage relationships, both personal and professional. So it's important to weigh the risks and benefit before making any decisions.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Risk management. What's going to happen if I do this? Those type of things. And this may be just practical for some folks, or maybe the obvious thing, but like I was going back and saying again, those single people who are entering these relationships, and to them it's kind of like holding on for dear life.
Yeah.
And not trying to cheat when they have access and have a phone full of phone numbers, and their old life keeps calling them back to the streets and saying, hey, I need to be checking up on this other girl I used to talk to. It really does take a commitment not to do things like that. You have to, if your focus and your intentions is one day marriage, you have to let go of all of that. Stop being players.
Yeah.
And whatnot. So you really have to be intentional about the relationship aspect and who you're with, and not wanting to hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
Because this may be, who knows? This could be your only shot at romance or being in a committed relationship.
Yeah.
So you don't want to damage that and mess that all up because you could not control yourself.
Yeah.
You weren't mature enough for a committed relationship. So be mindful.
I'm sorry. I like how you said, in particular with men, I think of having to naturally detax that player life out of you.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Because it involves a lot. You know,
Mhm.
the dopamine, the sex, the all of that, the whatever the type of lifestyle that you used to do to get those women, maybe hanging out in the club life, that
Mhm.
type of thing. There's a detoxing mechanism that has to go through, that you have to go through in order to actually be committed. For a lot of folks, a lot of guys have to do that,
Yeah.
and that is something that needs to be discussed. That's something that needs to be talked about, because it's not just like, look, you know, I didn't stop talking to all 5 of those females I used to talk to.
Right.
And then all of a sudden life goes, you know, you think it's normal, and then you're just committed to just one female. Sometimes it
Yeah.
is a struggle for guys, and it isn't it isn't easy. It's something that happens over time, out of the necessity and wanting to be with somebody in a committed,
Yeah.
meaningful relationship. So you do have to go and detox those urges. You have to go and detox those, your phone book, your contacts list. You have to
Yeah.
detox a lot of things. Go and burn your bed sheets.
Oh,
Do
great.
things like that. You know, because you know, it's
Yeah.
vibrational. You know, things like
Yeah.
that, and it reminds you of your old lifestyle.
Hmm.
But you know, it does make a man out of you. You become a better person than what you were before, when you used to talk to all these women that didn't lead to anything but heartache and heartbreak,
Yeah.
because these females were actually talking to you because one day they were hoping to be with you, and that isn't the case. So therefore, like I said, you have to mature, you have to grow up, stop using people, stop using women for
Yeah.
your conveniences. And if you want to, like I said, intentionally be with one woman one day and start a family, then you have to do these things. You have to be mindful of consequences
Yeah.
and losing your whole family if that's the case.
Yeah.
So,
Especially if you're married.
or
Yeah.
your meaningful relationship and someone who actually cares about you. So
Yeah. They talk about sowing your royal oats before you get married, but they don't talk about the part of what you do after. Like, how do you actually mend that up, you know?
yeah,
And
well, sowing oats can get you a lot of
yeah.
children too.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
That
so
is true.
think of the consequences, because ultimately those consequences can hurt future relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that might be why men may feel that I hear a lot of the conversation online about body count for like a woman.
Mhm.
And so they may feel like if a woman has had too many quote unquote bodies, then she may be unable to commit, kind of because of the same aspect of
Yeah.
having to detox the whole you messing with guy after guy after guy, you know, or whatever the case may be. So
Oh yeah,
yeah.
that is true. That's one of the reasons why men don't like high body counts, is because they feel as if the female could be um you know, very weak to lust,
Yeah.
and
Anything she's attracted to. Yeah.
right,
Just
and
act
may
on that.
want to, you know, be with someone else.
Mhm.
This is the topic that we're talking about. That plays a part into it, because guys
Yeah.
know, because especially if that guy was a player in his past, then he knows that, hey, you know, then this female may have access to other guys too, including, you know, me, while we're in this relationship. And so there's a trust issue there. So that's
Yeah.
the reason why guys don't like high body counts, because they don't trust, they want to be in the relationship, but they can't fully trust the female that they're with
Yeah.
because of the body counts and things that she may have had. And they automatically count those women out. So that lowers their sexual marketplace value. So
Yeah.
that's the reality of the situation. I would say that the same thing goes for men too, but women don't look at it that way. Guys don't look at it that way either, as far as body count for men.
Yeah, it's just a double standard.
It
yeah.
is a double standard. But
Yeah.
but ultimately at times, like I said, risk management. Men who sleep with multiple women often at times can have multiple children with these women.
Mhm.
So that is the consequence too for the actions. So guys, if you want to be players, then be fully committed and be fully transparent with yourself about what can happen and the possibilities of these things happening, and whether you're responsible or not responsible or not, while
Yeah.
you're, you know, being trying to have a convenient or casual relationship with multiple women.
Yeah, and I think any
So
person, in particular, man or woman, if you're wanting to be in a committed relationship, be mindful of how many, times you get into those deep, intimate connections with people that may, make it a little harder for you to commit in the long run, especially if it becomes a habit, that bad habit of something you're just, like you said, going to the club, picking up a person and going about your way. Like that can be a bad habit. Certainly an unconscious habit if you attach like
Right.
the idea of love to sex when it's not.
I wonder how many people out there have actually married somebody that they met at the club, a nightclub. Usually people go to nightclubs, and I've said this before, because they're hurt.
Yeah.
Or they're wanting to unwind for the weekend, and they don't necessarily make the best decisions while you've been drinking and dancing all night and worked all week. You're so
looking for more of a release than to actually build release. Something with somebody. Right. Exactly. Or find somebody to build in a club. Right. Yeah.
So right, exactly. So I don't think that's where relationships start, but as far as nightclubs and things like that. But it is a good way for people to relieve stress, celebrate, and all of the other things, but not find love. Definitely not. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so let's talk about how to deal with an attraction to someone else in a healthy way when in a committed relationship.
Yes. So for this lady in particular, this is how you do it. That was one of her main questions. How you do it. This is how. And believe it or not, it's not as hard as you may think. We've actually pretty much covered a good percentage of it, but let's dig on into some specific steps just to wrap it on up so people can really know what's the healthy way. How do you do it?
Yeah, the first step is to acknowledge that you are attracted to someone else. Be honest.
Yeah.
So this could be difficult, but it's important to be honest with yourself about your feelings versus trying to suppress them.
Yes. And maybe even, the cool thing is if you're in a good, comfortable relationship and you're committed with your spouse and your self-esteem is high for both of each other, your self trust in your relationship, that like, hey, this person is with me, you can even acknowledge it with them. If y'all see somebody that's attractive, good looking girl, like it is what it is. Like that's fine to acknowledge stuff like that. Like you don't have to suppress it and be like, oh, scared of those feelings, like, oh, I can't think about you, I can't feel this way. That actually can make you more likely to act in a way that's unhealthy if you're really put into a tempted situation because you're not used to just acknowledging something that's natural. It happens. Hey, some good looking people out here. It is what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, but just what's wrong? Just forget it.
Yes, like, acknowledging and let it go.
You don't even have to, right? I mean, just look and then don't say anything. Just forget it. Like, who's holding on to all of this lust out here?
A lot of people, though, surprisingly. But that's why, again, being mindful of your usual behaviors. How do you usually think about people? In particular, she said, if you find yourself wondering or constantly thinking about them, is this something that you do all the time? Make note of that now. If you're a single person and you're kind of like in an infatuated daze with a whole bunch of people or whatever the case may be, this may be something you want to, kind of get a handle on first.
Now, what if this is an ex for this person? That's the thing. If this was an ex.
What do you mean? Like if they're in a relationship and
still thinking of the ex.
Oh, still think, then that means you're not over your past
and that's a detox too. That's a detox process too of having to basically get this person out of your system, out of your vibrational surroundings, out of your thoughts, your memories, all of those things. So that is something else that you can get help on with too.
And you should do that before you get into a relationship.
Because what happens, you're going to rebound on somebody and then break their heart and be like, well, I've never really had intentions on actually being with you.
Right. I was just trying to keep my mind busy.
Right. And oftentimes that is what it takes. Yeah. Sadly, is that people who get out of a bad relationship look for a rebound to take their mind off of the person that they were previously with.
Yeah.
And it all goes bad when they start comparing that last person to the current person. And then that's when it unravels and things go bad. So without the actual intention of actually wanting to be with that person, you won't really enjoy the relationship that you're supposed to have with the new person.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that you're fully whole and healed before you actually go out and try it again, trying to be in another relationship.
Yes. Yep. So of course you don't act on your feelings. That's the next big part of this. Don't, you got to resist those temptations if it is a temptation. You don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize your relationship with your spouse. It starts with your thoughts. I think in particular, if you find yourself keep thinking or having, some issue with them popping in your head, I don't know, maybe a visualization you saw earlier. If that is something that is going on, then you have to find ways to distract your mind and put yourself into a different mindset. Get control over those thoughts. Don't allow your thoughts to overtake you. In particular, if you're having issues with controlling your thoughts, you got to get help, possibly from a third party, maybe a therapist, maybe a coach, maybe a knowledgeable marriage couple like us. We do consultations as well, but you just really have to be able to tackle the first thing, which is your thoughts, because your inner reality is going to create your outer reality. Your thoughts are going to impact your behavior. So if you can't get a grips on that and don't act on your feelings, and you're more so going to you're going to self-sabotage your relationship, which is unfortunate. Really unfortunate.
Yep. And so talk to your spouse. So if you're struggling to deal with your attraction to someone else, it can be helpful to talk to your spouse about it. They may be able to help you to understand your feelings and or walk through them together, or they just may be upset with you. Want you to get up out their face and take that mess somewhere else.
Right.
That is a double-edged sword. So you need to be careful. So,
and I think either way, though, it would, if a person is really struggling, right, and they're wanting to make it work though in their relationship, you gotta have that conversation, even if you're gonna get chewed out, even if you're having some issue, and you think your spouse is gonna come at you. It's important to be honest though, if this is taking place, so that then maybe it's a moment of clarity for both of you all. Maybe your spouse is able to say, hey, I have been putting you off. I haven't been giving you the love or whatever. Maybe your spouse is going through something too. Maybe you guys can address the disconnect and where it's actually coming from. Sometimes it takes these ugly, hard situations like this to make you open your eyes and realize, damn, what's going on? It'll help you figure out, is this something that's worth working through? Is it something that can be salvaged, or maybe do you need to part ways, especially if you're not married, right? In those dating relationships where you're considering maybe multiple guys or multiple girls, trying to figure out what you want to do, that might be the moment to where you're like, man, I'm just having a hard time with this. If I can't work through this with you, then maybe we need to break up. So yeah.
And then focus on your relationship. So make an effort to focus on your relationship with your spouse, and to do things that make you happy and enjoying the relationship. So this will help you to stay committed to your relationship and to resist temptation.
Yeah, especially if you are in a marriage. Think about those married couples in particular. That really serious commitment, you have to just focus on those positive aspects of your relationship, making sure to take the time to think about, what do you love about your spouse? What do you love, the things that you all do? What turns you on about your spouse in particular? Maybe if you find yourself having something that you see attractive about someone else, maybe try to reference that back to your spouse. Like, hey, I used to like when my spouse dressed like this. Maybe I'll mention, or buy her something nice to dress like that for me again. I don't know, something to where you can bring it back to your spouse. So then that way, that moment of, seeing something appealing outside could actually offer an opportunity for you to utilize that within your relationship, something that can spark up some, good feelings back within your relationship, or give you some ideas of some things you can do. Just overall focus on those positive aspects of your relationship and how, you can use them to help you stay committed and resist that temptation. Yeah.
And then also to set boundaries. So if you're feeling tempted to act on your attraction to someone else, it is important to set boundaries.
Yeah.
This means avoiding situations where you will be alone with the other person and limiting your contact with them. Don't do that.
Like those work wives, work husbands things we talked about last week.
Right, exactly.
It makes me think of
that. Don't put yourself in those situations. If you can't trust yourself to do the right thing, don't even tempt yourself to do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So be honest and be committed to your relationship. Set those boundaries with yourself and stick to them.
Yeah, and that's healthy. That certainly helps, especially if you have another thing kind of pops in mind if you have a high sex drive, maybe even to the point where
Or
it
you're
can lead to
addicted.
addiction. Yeah, something like that. It's a real issue that you have to be okay with setting those boundaries for yourself. That's growth. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. That actually shows discipline. It shows that, hey, something, I'm a little more tempted in this aspect. Let me go ahead and set up something so I can stick to code and I won't have to worry about that. So there's nothing wrong with that.
And then take care of yourself. So make sure that you are taking care of yourself physically and emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah.
So this will help you to feel better about yourself and to resist temptation.
Yeah. If you are hungry, what they always say, don't let your man leave the house, or something I grew up hearing. Don't let your man leave the house with, I'm not going to say the second part, but empty stomach. Because then he's more likely to want to be fed from something else. Kind of that same aspect will still apply. If you're not getting what you need, make sure you address those things first before you try to go out into the world and then try looking for getting that fulfillment elsewhere.
Yeah. And then also to seek professional help. A lot of
Yeah.
these people out here who are committing infidelities need professional help. So if
Yeah.
you're struggling to deal with your attraction to someone else on your own, it is a good idea to seek professional help. A therapist can help you to understand your feelings and to develop strategies for dealing with them in a healthy way. So,
Vet your therapist,
yeah,
though.
vet your therapist.
Yeah.
Make sure that they are happily married as well. So, at the least,
and of sound
right.
mind. Yeah, certainly. Always put that disclaimer out there when you're talking about therapists. But I don't think this is a bad idea, especially too. I think of those early married couples, those newlyweds, where you may need to find a mentor couple or a mentor that you can, go to or confide in when those times come along, or where you may find yourself, dealing with the stagnicity of a relationship or those boring times. How can y'all move through them and not allow to need another third party come in and interrupt or anything like that? So it's never a bad idea to get help if you feel like you need help. I think that's a big issue within society in general. People are a little nervous, a little scared, or a little insecure to reach out and get that help if you need it. But help is available, especially now in these days. Really make sure you get in the help you need so you can have that fulfilling life. You can have that joyous relationship, that loving commitment, that relationship you've always dreamed of. But that's not something that's just going to drop out of the air. It's not something that's easily done. It's going to take work. It's going to take commitment. It's going to take you getting help if you need it. And the first step is to acknowledge that. So please do that.
Yep. So remember that this is normal to be attracted to other people when you are in a relationship. However, it is important to be respectful of your spouse and to not act on those feelings. So if you can do these things, you can deal with your attraction to someone else in a healthy way and avoid jeopardizing and dooming your relationship.
Yes.
Good people.
Yes. Hope we answered that question for all of our viewers tuning in, and in particular this young lady here. There's no issue to why you should be worried if you want to have a completely monogamous relationship and you may be attracted to a person here or there. That's all based off of you.
Yeah, that's discipline. That's discipline, maturity, all of that. If you don't have discipline and you're not mature enough, to don't be in a relationship.
Yeah.
But ultimately work on those things because that is what she wants.
Yeah, and it takes work. It takes work. Why do you think this is why we do what we do? Truth be told, because we, for one, we're in it, thick of it, going on 11 years being married come November. We understand. We grew up together. In particular, we've known each other for over 15 years. So we understand. I'm pretty sure we've gone through a good amount of the things that a person will go through. And here to tell you, this isn't one of those things that's going to make or break a relationship. This is so small. Like, it's natural. It's normal. I think a lot of that may be surrounding a fear of commitment. I would recommend checking out our videos that we've had done on, fear of commitment, insecurity, stuff like that. Because if you're really worried about something like an attraction to others being an issue in your relationship, it's probably some other things that need to be addressed before you even get into a relationship.
Yep, find out what it is.
Yeah, please. So that way you're in a better position to have that fulfilling relationship. You'll know what you do. Run this video back. Think about, some things and really figure out, hey, am I ready for a relationship? Am I ready to do this? And if so, then yeah, don't worry about things like that. Life's going to happen. Relationships are full of ups and downs, but in particular, how you know if your relationship is valuable and if you're going to get through it is if you decide that you're going to get through it. If you decide that you're going to just do what you got to do, put in the work, and actually have a loving relationship. You all deserve it. We all deserve that, but it takes work. Got to be willing to do it.
Yeah. So with that being said, anybody got any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah. Thank you all for joining us. Let's see. We got YouTube and Instagram full house per usual. Thank y'all for this Monday.
Yep. Thank you.
Tuning on in. We got some great topics for this week, as y'all know, Monday through Friday. So it's always a pleasure to do this community service, allowing God to work through us.
Yep.
That's all this is. So thank you.
Yep. So until next time, Blueprint family, thank you all for joining us. You all have a wonderful week.
Bye.